He's right there. 50 yards away, I can hear this huge bull elk screaming, responding to my cow calls. Mew! Mew! I'm dressed head to toe in camouflage, hiding under a small grand fir tree, and doing my best impression of a bush. 40 yards, the sticks are cracking. I catch my first whiff of that musty smell that elk put off when they're in the rut. I still can't see him though. Mew! Mew! 30 yards, I catch my first glimpse of tan fur through the pine trees. When his body clears the last tree, I strain to pull back my bow, line up those sights, and let that arrow fly. I watch as it goes screaming towards that elk, hits its mark. I just threw my bow down, looked up at the sky. Wahoo! Unlike the last 5 years, it finally worked. I got my first bull elk all alone in the wilderness. Ooh, I was on top of the world. Just laid down on the ground, looking up at the sky. Wow. I never would have guessed that 48 hours later, I would once again be laying on my back. Except this time, a doctor would be staring down at me, saying, Jake, you've just broken your neck. You are now a quadriplegic. You will never move your legs again. You will never move your arms again. And when we get done with this next surgery, we don't know if you'll ever be able to breathe on your own again. Is it fair to say that was a defining moment in my life? Yeah. I mean, things are never going to be the same, but was it the defining moment of my life? Aha! While breaking my neck changed my life, it was really what came next that changed me at a core level. Day 3, I'm still in the intensive care unit at OHSU. Our lives are upside down. I can't work in the woods anymore. I'm just barely breathing. Mom had to quit her job. But I just hit that point where I couldn't take it anymore, like, enough! So when Mom came in that room and I could just see the tears come down her eyes, I strained as much as I could against that hard plastic neck brace and said, Mom, would you just chill? It is what it is. And that reaction caught all of us off guard. I wasn't planning that. It was just a total living off animal instinct. And everyone's looking at me. I mean, the doctors, my mom, dad, brother, like, what's wrong with you, kid? Shouldn't you be crying right now? I watched as the first time, like, whoa. Without the power to move my hand an inch, choosing an attitude like that had the power to move every single person in that room. So when a friend of yours is having a rough day, what can an attitude like that do for you? When you're going through a tough time or helping a coworker through a rough time, what could choosing a positive attitude like that do for you? Does everyone remember that movie, Forrest Gump? He had that famous line, say it with me if you know it. My mama always said, life's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get. I would agree with Forrest, except I would change it just a little bit. I think our lives are a lot like a box of choices. We truly never know what each day is going to bring, do we? Let's rewind time, go back to 2008 when many of those pictures were taken. I had just graduated college from the University of Idaho. Go Vandals. Received my degree in forest products and just got my first permanent job in tropical, steamy Tillamook, Oregon. It was 2008. I was happy to have a job anywhere. I worked for the Oregon Department of Forestry for about 3 weeks. Then I went back to my old hometown of Eagle Creek, which is kind of by Estacada, Oregon. And we went out. We were going to live it up. I mean, it was birthday weekend. Old friends met new friends, went out drinking and dancing, and unfortunately, I still had that old college mentality. Drink till you drop, yeah. That night was no different. I was taking those girls, I used to love the country swing dance. So I was taking those girls and throwing them side to side, flipping them over my head, never once thinking that night would be my last dance ever. It was on our way home when we ran into a problem. We stopped at a gas station at 2 in the morning. My friends got out to pay for the fuel. I'm just kind of sitting in the pickup, looking at the gas station and this person coming out. I can see by the way he's staggering, he's pretty messed up. In fact, he'd just been denied sale of more beer because he was so messed up. And if you've ever been to Eagle Creek, Oregon, that's a feat in itself. As he's getting closer, I'm looking and I start recognizing him. Hey, wait, that's my old long-lost buddy. Holy cow, I scramble out of the pickup. Dude, how have you been? It's been like 5 or 6 years since we've seen each other. This is the kid I grew up next door to. How you doing, man? It's been a long time. What's up? We talk back and forth. We're pumped up. We're excited for maybe 1 minute. When I turned my back to get something in the pickup, he made a bad choice. He decided it would be funny, I guess, to put me in a full Nelson headlock like that. Just to show how big and strong he was, I guess. Since both of us had our balances impaired by alcohol, we fell forward. And with my arms pinned behind my head, the first thing to hit the pavement was my head. So with the weight of 2 bodies on top of me, it just snapped my neck right away, the 6th vertebrae about right here. People always ask, what's it like to break your neck? It honestly didn't hurt. I didn't feel anything. I was just laying there looking up the lights, kind of like this. I was seeing my limbs being pulled up. When you have a spinal cord injury, your body knows what to do. It tightens up the muscles around the injury site to try to protect that spinal cord and the vertebrae. So my body was shaking a lot. And I think my friend thought I was faking it, so he kept trying to pull me up. What's the one thing they tell you never to do when you see a person with a spinal cord injury? You're right, you never move. I was moved a lot. I was awake for maybe 10 minutes, talked to the paramedics briefly, then was life flighted to OHSU, where I spent 4 days, and then spent 12 weeks in the hospital in Seattle, Harborview Medical Center. And we started from square one. I was literally just ahead. Couldn't move or feel anything below my collarbone. And it's still a struggle today. These 4 years later, I'm still getting function back and still getting strength back. Even though most people associate time in a hospital in a really negative way, I found it was the opposite experience. There was a whole lot of people that were there to support you, and really it was like a way to start over with a clean slate. Because everything that made up Jake, the first 23 years of my life, was now pretty much wiped away. And no matter if we're in a hospital, we're in a workplace, or maybe with our families, I think opportunities like that exist on a weekly basis where we can kind of rebrand an experience that we've had and try to find the positive in it. I do have 2 regrets from that night. The first regret, even though my friend was the one that put me in the headlock, guess who the only person was that decided it was cool to drink like that? If I wouldn't have been there, it wouldn't have happened. And admitting that guilt's been something that's really helped me to get over it. The second regret I have, I can't believe it. 5 days before this accident happened, as a new employee at the Oregon Department of Forestry, I'm holding that contract in my hand, and at the very bottom it says, "Would you like disability insurance?" $40 a month. $40 a month would have changed my life, and I didn't sign it. Like I said, I spent 12 weeks in Harborview Medical Center that had amazing care there, wonderful doctors, nurses, physical therapists. We had a physical therapy room, and there was people all around me that had varying injuries. I mean, one day I was working out, there was a guy next to me that had been in some kind of accident where he lost both of his legs and his arms. He was learning to use new prosthetics on all 4 limbs. A lady was sitting on the other side of me who'd just been in a fire. I mean, people were hurting pretty bad. Well, in this therapy room, there was one of those like cliche motivational posters. I mean, it was the cheesiest you could imagine too. Shows this guy in a wheelchair sailing off a cliff with his parasail. And under it is this lofty quote from Charles Swindoll. It says, "Life is only 10% what happens to you and 90% what you choose to do about it." I'm looking at this quote being like, what? What are you talking about, Charles? This is a kind of big 10%, don't you think? I'm throwing this little mental pity party and this tantrum like, what are you talking about? Look at this person here. They're pretty screwed up. Look at this person. something stops me and kind of catches my breath away. And you might see this as a reoccurring theme through my speech. It was a very gorgeous 20-some-year-old girl that came walking through the door. And I say she took my breath away because she was the type of person that you don't see typically in hospitals. I mean, she looked like she just walked off the cheerleader squad. Seriously, she's dressed, I mean, head to toe, just looking gorgeous, got her pearls on, her hair's did, makeup, oof. She comes walking through the door with her walker, and she really looked very normal, just had a slight limp. She proceeds to sit down on the table, the exercise table just right across from me, and break down. I mean, she is throwing a fit. The core of her fit was, my life's changed, I had this stroke, and my friends saw me in a wheelchair that first day. Every one of us in that room stops what we're doing and kind of turns at her, and we're thinking, are you serious? Any one of these people would do anything. They might have to work the rest of their lives to get to that lowest point where, oh, heaven forbid you were for a day. I got to know Courtney throughout my stay there. Turns out she was a really cool girl, but just having a bad day. But I'll never forget that experience. I mean, looking at Courtney, it didn't seem like what we had physically really had that much relation to any sort of happiness scale. Looking at this girl who had what appeared to us as everything and just choose to stay down here, it showed that it's more of a mentality that determines how we feel inside than what we have physically or financially. Which is fantastic news for you and me because it takes power away from some of the things that we can't control, like a spinal cord injury, the economy, less and less resources. And it puts that control back into your hands to determine really what kind of experience you and I have at work every single day. There's a choice that many of us gloss over. We don't really even think about it much. And that's what kind of leadership role we're going to take in our own life. I believe that each one of us has the power to really become the leader of our own lives. You are not your circumstances. You are stronger than whatever happens to you or has happened to you in the past. So in order to become the leader of your own life, I mean, what are some of the things that could really stand in your way? I think it's the negative anchors we encounter. And the negative anchors are the things that really pull us down and drown our dreams. For example, one of the negative anchors that almost pulled me under was self-confidence. When I first had this spinal cord injury, okay, I'm now a quadriplegic, I convinced myself that everything was lost. I mean, all of my muscles were gone. I had to have help to do everything for a long time. The degree I just spent 4 years earning in college was now pretty much useless. And the reality that was most difficult to come to terms with, what kind of girl would ever be interested in a guy who looks like this? Do you see how easy it is to let our power be taken away by negative self-talk? I mean, were any of these things actual fact? So answer this for me, yes or no. Are all of my muscles gone? No. Do I still need help to do everything? Could I ever get a girlfriend? Thank you. I don't get that response from every audience. Do you see how easy it is to convince ourselves and create these stories in our mind of what we can and can't do? So negative self-talk, that could be one example of an anchor that could pull us down. Other anchors that I've seen pull people down are how they look. Health problems, money, divorce. A lot of times we don't know what other people are dealing with. And we don't get that insight until we really get to know people, have those tough conversations. Well, in order to become the leader of your own life, you have to recognize when one of these anchors is trying to creep into your life and pull you down. So what I do is a little goofy, but I literally stomp my foot down. Boom! I tell myself, I am not my circumstances. I am awesome and have everything I need to succeed. Okay, repeat after me. Start with the foot stomp. Boom! I am not my circumstances. I am awesome and have everything I need to succeed. Okay, let's do it again like it's not a question. I have everything I need to succeed. Start with the foot stomp. Boom! I am not my circumstances. I am awesome. I have everything I need to succeed. That is exactly the type of confidence I want you to have. So when you walk by that mirror every day, you look in there and be like, yeah, that's right. Hey, whether it's true or not, we can tell ourselves, right? So when we are having those struggles in that pity pit, I use these chants all the time because convincing ourselves is usually the most difficult task. Other people will believe in ourselves sometimes before we even do. And one of my favorite speakers named Keith Harrell, he would say, if your vision of the future has your feet in it, you are looking in the wrong direction. Humor has been a huge coping mechanism that my family has used. I mean, humor and a smile has been huge because a lot of the situations and new realities that we've had to face, we're pretty much going to either be laugh or cry. In the hospital, my room became known as the joyful room. And that's a tactic that any of us can use to help when we're working with employees that are going through a rough time, even in hard stuff. For example, like when I first came home, it was hard enough to go back into my old hometown now as a quadriplegic, but not to mention the chair that I was in. When you saw those pictures, I hung out with like the rough and tough guys, right? I was on the logger sports team in college. Well, my nurse decided to play a trick on me. We had a great relationship, and the wheelchair that I came home in was not this blue hot rod that you see before yourself today. No. My nurse decided to send me home in a hot pink wheelchair. Not kind of pink, not salmon, hot pink. Man, you gotta be kidding me. So my buddies from college would come down and they'd say, Jake, it is so good to see you, man. You're doing great. You're getting stronger all the time, but dude, what is up with that wheelchair? Look at him and say, how can I turn this? How can I turn this around? What are you guys talking about? This baby is magenta. What's up? It's all in how you look at it. One day my nurse comes down and she says, Jake, I know you're an outdoors type of guy. When was the last time that you caught any fresh air? Shoot, I don't know. It's been a couple months now. Would you like to go outside? Sure, why not? So we go down a part of the hospital that I'd never really been to before to head outdoors. And halfway there, something caught my attention. It stopped me in my tracks, really. What I turned to face was a full-length mirror that went from the floor all the way to the ceiling. They don't put a lot of mirrors in places like that for a reason. This was really the first time that I'd seen myself in a chair as a quadriplegic that looks like all those other people I'd seen with the slump and the hands. And it took my breath away. And maybe you felt like that too before sometimes because you look in the mirror every once in a while and see someone that you don't recognize. Maybe you've started drinking too much or arguing with your spouse. Maybe you've lost or gained some weight. So looking in that mirror, I was really paralyzed, not by my spinal cord injury, but the story my brain was creating, and I was throwing myself into that pity pit. Well, nurses are incredible. I mean, she'd seen this 100 times before, and she leapt in before I totally went splat on rock bottom. She said, Jake, you yourself told me that you didn't want to be like the people here who choose to stay in the pity pit. I was like, oh yeah. That was one handhold out of the pity pit. She said, Jake, when you first came in here, you had to have 3 people just help you sit up in bed. Now you're wheeling yourself down the hall. Oh yeah. Another handhold out of the pity pit. She said, Jake, look at all the people that are here visiting you that love you and support you and want you to get better. Oh yeah. One more handhold out of the pity pit. And she hadn't talked me to the point where I was like totally out of it, but she'd taken me to the point where I could at least see daylight again. And then she said, hey, I volunteer in an Alcoholics Anonymous group. They have a saying I think you would like. says, please grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change what I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Remember that light bulb that just started to barely flicker when I told my mom, just chill, it is what it is? Well, this emotional low and then subsequent high that nurse had talked me into in the mirror, it caused that light bulb to illuminate again. It was like, bing, I got it. So I'm curious, I want to hear from you. What do you think that experience in the mirror taught me? Don't make me come down there. I will do it.
You will be married.
I will be married. I hope so. What else? Self-pity gets you nowhere. You're right on the money. It's true. What else?
Your disability doesn't define you.
I am a wheelchair, but, I use a wheelchair, but I am not a wheelchair, right? Yeah. You're right on the money. I mean, what we think about ourselves and the stories we tell ourselves, that really gives power to brand any experience as whatever we choose it to be. The words we attach to something that happens, that kind of creates what it represents in our lives, doesn't it? So has there been any times in your life when you kind of looked in that mirror and gone, oh my gosh, what's happened? Well, my question to you is, what language are you attaching to that event? Because maybe you could change its meaning. And that event, it honestly got me fired up. I was like, woo! I'm going to show you what a guy in a wheelchair can do. Yeah, this stinks, but what if we could turn the worst thing that's ever happened to me into one of the best things that's ever happened? And that's really what my philosophy of life happens, live it, is all about. You might be thinking, life happens, live it. That's a cool catchphrase, Jake. What's it have to do with me at the Labor Relations Institute? Well, life happens, live it, that's a commitment to can do. That's an adapt and overcome mentality that is absolutely critical for every one of you that has jobs where you're being expected to do more and more with what seems like less and less. Unfortunately, some of you might have jobs where letting people go is a part of your duty. It wouldn't be fair for me to say I know what that feels like. I've never had to tell anybody that I might know very well their life is going to change in a big way. I wouldn't know. I can't imagine how difficult that is. But I do have a little bit of experience on what it's like to be on the other side of that, on the receiving end of life being totally turned upside down. And there are a few things that I wish people who were with me at those critical times would have told me that would have helped that transition big time. And one of those is, we are not our story. And I wrote something down here because I didn't want to leave it out. Yes. And it was really about turning life happens, live it, into your key to turn excuses into expectations. Because whether it's you who is working through these tough challenges in your life, or whether you are helping someone you know work through these tough challenges, we get addicted to our stories. And life happens. That's when the unexpected things pop up. And we can't help that. It's important to acknowledge when that happens. Don't pretend it's not there. And also, never compare to what other people are going through, because that's just deconstructive. That helps nobody move forward. The most important step is the second part, live it. So when life happens, what are you going to do? How are you going to take it that next level? How are you going to live it? And there's tons of ways you can do that. The best way is find someone else who's done it before you. Find a mentor. They were absolutely key in helping me to move forward in my life. Right now, we have a greater resource to answer our questions than has ever existed. And it's top secret. It's called Google. Type it in there. You're not the only person who has gone through this. Look at those online forums. Get professional help from a therapist, from a trainer, or some kind of planner that can help you plan those next steps out that you're going to do. In fact, write it down, set a goal, and then set a goal, write it down, make a plan to get there. And that third step is the most important. Actually do it. So when we take the easy way out, which honestly, I'm up here doing the inspirational speaker thing. I'll be honest with you. There are times when I'm so low every month, sometimes even every week, when I can hardly get myself out of bed. I'm not perfect. I won't ever pretend that I am perfect. The worst thing you can do is to rely on an old excuse and say that's why something can't be different today. So today we are going to turn excuses into expectations. And this is how we do it. Just because something happened bad in our life in the past, that's just a chapter. That doesn't have to be the end. You always hold the pen. You can write whatever you would like as a continuation of the chapter. Or you know what? Even the next chapter. And here's how it could go. Because I am the leader of my life, I will blank. Or it could go, because I am the leader of my life and not my blank, I will blank. For me personally, it goes, because I am the leader of my life and not my wheelchair, I will work as hard as I can every day so that I can look back and not live with any regrets, knowing that I could have done something different or utilize the people who want to help me even more. I believe that you become your expectations. I totally believe that. And I also believe that intention without action moves nobody forward. So today, this morning, you are going to turn an old excuse into a new expectation. When I did this just a few days ago with a group of high school leaders, one girl stood up, and my hat's off to her. She was so brave. She told us all, the entire class, about this old excuse that she had. She thought she was pudgy. And because of that, she didn't do sports, didn't want to get involved in anything, wouldn't wear the popular clothes, felt bad about herself. She let that excuse control her entire life until she finally had enough. She says, why am I letting that control who I am today? That's in the past. She turned it into an expectation of herself. She says, since I have this problem with my story that I tell myself, I'm going to turn that into an expectation. I expect myself to get involved, to try some sports, to go out and try to lose weight. And she did. She looks incredible now. She changed her story. And you know what? It changed your life. What kind of stories have you created in the past that maybe you still use as an excuse of why today can't be different? I'm going to give you about 10 seconds to think, 10 seconds of silence to think what that old story is. Ready, go. Do you have it? All right, again in silence, everybody stand up. We are going to change your story right now. I'm going to say that first sentence. Because I am the leader of my life and not my blank. When that blank happens, I'm going to point to you, and you're going to sum up in one or two words what your old excuse is. Then I will say, I will blank. Again, I'll point to you and say one sentence on what you are going to do about it. Don't worry, no one else is going to hear because all 400 of us will be talking at the same time, so no one's going to hear it. Except me. It's going to go like this. Because I am the leader of my life and not my, I point to you, you say what your excuse is, I will, and then you'll say what you're going to do about it. Got it? First, let's loosen up a little bit. Shake your arms out. Shake your legs out. Okay, repeat after me. Hey, hey, hey. Hey, hey, hey. Oi, oi, oi. Oi, oi, oi. We love Jake. You didn't have to say that last part. Thank you. Okay, here we go. Change your story, change your life. Because I am the leader of my life and not my... Must have a little wax in my ears. Okay, let's do it again like we mean it. Because I am the leader of my life and not my... I will... It's a little awkward, isn't it? We're going to do it again. This time, everyone's going to say it at the top of their lungs so we don't have to worry about our partner wondering about our... because I am the leader of my life and not my. I will. Exactly. Hey, give yourself a round of applause. I'm proud of you. Have a seat, please. It might seem a little bit silly. The reason I had you stand up and verbally, out loud, say what you're going to do, make that commitment to yourself, is because the toughest person you'll ever have to convince of what you're capable of is that person who looks back at you in the mirror. You have to believe in yourself before anyone else can. And I'm aware that some of you might have some struggles that maybe some of us can't see. Maybe no one sees. You know, there's something that's more disabling to me than my wheelchair. And I really don't tell most audiences this. I have pain that is more disabling than being in a wheelchair. When we're dealing with those things, I call them the hidden disabilities, and they can be totally emotional that other people may not be able to see. I know how easy it can be to fall into that pity pit, to start slipping. When I catch myself spiraling down into the poor me pity pit, there are 3 4-letter cuss words that come out of my mouth. And for the sake of education, I will say those cuss words today. Janice is looking at me like, what are you going to do? These 4-letter bad words that slip out of my mouth when I am spiraling into that pity pit are can't, won't, and don't. I consider these the most vile of cuss words because they shoot us down. They sabotage our success before we even have a chance. These are what I call hi-ya moments. As soon as I catch myself saying or thinking one of these 3 bad words, I literally go, hi-ya! I'm serious. The reason I do that, it forces me to stop right away before I say or think something deconstructive. Hi-ya is so goofy, it makes me smile, gives me a second to think, and then respond. Change the can't into can. Could I have a volunteer, please? All right, give her a round of applause. Come on up here. What's that? Yeah. Get to see your ninja skills. Hi-ya. What's your name?
Shannon.
Hi, Shannon. It's nice to meet you. Well, Shannon is going to be rebranded as Hi-ya Woman.
Hiya. Okay.
And you know, you've got some... Yes! I knew I picked the right one. I love it. And as Hi-ya Woman, your hair is beautiful, but Hi-ya Woman tends to have this mohawk thing going on. So would you mind putting that mohawk wig on?
I thought this was going to be for you.
No. Yep, just put it right on there. Aw, yeah. Yeah, don't worry. It's not like there's things like Facebook where the whole world will see this, but...
Yes. At least my son's not here to take pictures.
Oh, I know, but Facebook is. Okay, so as Hi-ya Woman, there are 3 words that you just can't stand, and those are. When you hear one of those 3 bad words, I want you to give me the biggest, loudest, most dynamic hi-ya that you could possibly muster up.
Okay.
Okay, practice.
Hiya.
Yes, I love it. Well, thank you, Hi-ya Woman. When I first started this journey as a speaker, I had a hard time because in my head I would convince myself that I just can't. Whoa! Thank you, Hi-ya Woman. I'll change that can't into can do. It's like, you know, there's some days when I just won't be able. Whoa! Thank you, Hi-ya Woman. Change that won't do into a will do. And some people I meet, they just don't even know. Whoa! Thank you. It helped me change that don't do into a do. All right, thank you. Let's give her a round of applause. Hey, before you go, Hi-ya Woman, for being such a good volunteer, I'll give you a copy of my book. See, it pays to volunteer. It is signed. If you really want to have some fun with the people you work with, take hi-ya moments back to them. They won't know what you're talking about. They'll say can't, won't, or don't. And it's like, excuse me, hi-ya. And they'll be like, what? But inside you can chuckle. I was talking to my Uncle Dan, who's a man I admire very much, and telling him about, hey, I'm going forward, doing the Life Happens, Live It thing. He said, Jake, that's great. What else are you doing to make it more concrete, to make sure that you get where you'd like to go? Like, I don't know, man. Life happens, live it. Okay. He says, no. So let me share with you a simple 3-step process I've used my whole life to make sure that I get what I want. He said, all I do, on paper, I set a goal, I write it down, make a plan to get there, and then put a date on it. When is it going to happen? When am I going to do it? Okay, been successful, I'll try that. When you are new to a wheelchair, like that first year, your world is learning to transfer. And by that, I mean lean forward, kind of pick yourself up so that you scoot over out of your chair onto a bed, onto a couch, into the driver's seat of a car. Wrote that baby down as a goal. I want to learn to transfer. I want to get a little independence back. Wrote a detailed plan down with my physical therapist and put a date on it, 6 months. We worked hard, and it's hard to explain to you how weak I was. I mean, I was just a noodle. I would go like this, lean forward, and totally fall flat and need help to get back up. That 6 months came, and it didn't happen. I thought, oh man, what's going on here? Well, funny, I got a little extra motivation after that happened, after I failed that first time, because I got myself a girlfriend. I wanted to sit next to her on the couch. So we redid the plan, updated it, and tried some new ideas, put a new date on there. Oh, the first time I was able to transfer, I was like, yes, I am totally sitting next to her on the couch. So I wheel home, wheel out of the car, flip this armrest up, lean forward, shuffle myself over there next to my baby. And then I pulled a move that I know every one of you guys in here has done at some point, because I was tired. And as I'm looking over into her beautiful brown eyes, I asked, is your heart handicap accessible? Bad, isn't it? If I ever write another book, I think I'm going to title it Cheesy Lines from a Wheelchair. Which, by the way, I wouldn't write my lines down because I'm single. So that was one of my short-term goals. I mean, one of my long-term goals is to be able to stand up or maybe not use this wheelchair anymore. I go to a physical therapy place in Beaverton, Oregon called Adapt Advance. They work with people like me who have neurological disorders, really of any kind. They try to get us thinking through the paralyzed parts of our body again. Even though as a quadriplegic I don't really feel from here down, when I lean forward, they have now taught me, okay, if I go like this, what muscles would you be using to push yourself back? Okay, maybe my lower back. All right, push through my feet. So today, getting that mental connection, I can start to feel my back heat up. And right now, after just doing that, my feet are starting to tingle. So why is it important to have those high expectations? In the end, we really become our expectations, don't we? And can anyone tell me what the difference between a paraplegic and a quadriplegic is?
To being no use of your legs and then no use of or limited use of your arms.
That's very close. Well, many people come up and tell me about their friend who is in a wheelchair. And they'll say, well, they don't look anything like you. I know. Not everyone can look like this. When you are a paraplegic, typically you have broken a vertebrae in your back and will be affected from that part down, from that vertebrae down, and have full use of your arms, usually. When you break your neck, you are a quadriplegic. And that means that depending on the vertebrae you break, that will determine your level of function. There's 7 vertebrae in your neck, going from 1 down to 7. The higher you go, so the smaller the number gets, the less function you will have. See, I broke my neck at the 6th vertebrae, which is about right here. And because of that, I don't really feel anything to the touch from my collarbone down. I can feel my shoulders, I can use those, on down to these rippling python biceps. Feel the tops of my arms, and these 2 fingers on each hand. But I don't really feel these 3 fingers or the bottoms of my arms or my triceps. But I'm getting better every single day. You know, progress is slow, but it's steady. And I had this friend, he recently passed away, named Emsley back home. He's this little man, he was like 84 years old, really eccentric guy, used to yodel for his sheep. And one day when he was giving me advice about life in his Emsley fashion, he was saying, Jake, it's behoovin' to be movin'. Good point, Emsley. It is behoovin' to be movin'. One of my lifetime goals is to regain independence. Live on my own again, maybe hire a caregiver to do the things that my mom gets stuck with doing. And honestly, everything's not like rainbows and sparkles for me. People think that I'm motivated always by just the wonderful things in life. And it turns out, at first, I was motivated by what I didn't want. There was a summer day in 2009, the first summer I was home as a quadriplegic. I'm sitting out, it's like 80 degrees, just beautiful, not a breath of wind, and I'm out in the trees where I used to make my living, just staring. I kind of shook myself after about 5 minutes because what had been going through my head was that question. Can I really live like this? Am I in or am I out? And when I shook myself, it was because it scared me so bad. I've never been a guy who's thought about taking his own life. I mean, nothing's ever seemed that bad. And I didn't know exactly where I would be going or what I would be moving towards. I just knew that I didn't want to be back there. I was going anywhere but back there. Just the thought of being 23 years old, giving up, and just relegating yourself to a nursing home, oh man, that scared me so bad. And there's many different kinds of motivation. I can't say one is better than another. So take whatever works for you and roll with it. Go forward. Josh is a cowboy from Central Oregon. He's about my age. I think he's 26 now. In high school, we just knew each other because we'd see each other at rodeos, and he used to be a bull rider. And we'd see each other in sports too. So we just had an acquaintance. Unfortunately, about 2.5 years ago, while at a rodeo, he got bucked off his bull and landed on his head, broke his neck, is now a quadriplegic. As you can imagine, seeing someone that you know go through the same thing you've been through, my heart just sunk. And I was like, I got to help this guy. Getting back into the outdoors, and you saw a lot of pictures of me hunting and fishing, getting back into the outdoors, learning to fish, learning to hunt again, was like monumental in my recovery because it gave me something to think about, something to look forward to. I thought, I want to help Josh get back into the outdoors. We have these shooting tables that I use because I can't just hold a rifle up when I'm target practicing. I have to have a table that holds it, and then I put this finger through the trigger guard and use my other hand to pull it back. So we have all these modified contraptions to make it work. I thought, wow, it would be so cool to get Josh able to shoot at cans again. We bring all this stuff out to his house, and he is a much higher level quad than I am, which means he has way less function. He doesn't have the core strength that I have. He can barely get his arm up just to touch the top of his head like that. It was going to be a challenge. My brother is awesome. You might have seen him in those pictures. He's like, how can we make it work? He sat him in the seat of the car, in the passenger seat. He had stacks of my books to hold his arms up, all these trays and blankets to hold the rifle up. And it seriously took like an hour to get the first shot off because he didn't even have the strength to put his finger through there and pull back with his other hand. What we ended up doing was attaching a wrist cuff to his arm, putting like a bungee cord hook in it so he could hook that through the trigger and use his whole body to pull and get the trigger to go off. When he had that first shot go off, I mean, I don't feel anything below here, but seeing that smile on his face, I swear I can feel my legs again. I mean, it was just touching. He was so pumped, so excited to go tell his dad, Dad, I can't believe it. I mean, people like him are not supposed to be able to do what he just did. He was on cloud 9, and for once he wasn't looking at what he did not have and was excited about the future. His dad kind of looked at him and said, well, nice job, nice shot, but you were kind of shooting at a big target. Are you kidding me? I mean, yeah, he was shooting at a 55-gallon metal drum, but just the fact that he's able to shoot is like amazing. I mean, I saw Josh, I saw his spirits just absolutely sink. He had no desire to pick up that rifle again for like another 2 years. I know his dad. His dad's a great guy, an incredibly supportive guy. He just wasn't thinking. He was kind of trying to crack a joke. These are these critical times when employees or friends or family members are reaching out to us and looking for that approval. And when we do that, we feel kind of vulnerable. In today's world, we really cannot afford to not be unaware when people are throwing out what Dr. John Gottman calls connection bids. All a connection bid is a fundamental unit of emotional communication. It can be a look. It can be a sigh, an expression. Anything that says, I want to be connected to you. He found that over the course of dinner, the average couple can have up to 60 connection bids. The reason this is important to you, I believe these connection bids exist in a 1-to-2 ratio. Answering, acknowledging a connection bid, so looking up from your email, stopping the text for just 1 minute to acknowledge what they're saying, to look at them, to honor, that earns you 1 point towards a stronger relationship. However, when we're busy, or we just forget, or we don't have time to talk with people, or we don't think about what's coming out of our mouth when they're reaching out to us, that has the power to subtract 2 points from our relationship. Every time that we come in contact with each other is a chance to break down or build up a relationship. Be on the lookout this next week when employees are reaching out to you for those connection bids, because little by little you can answer them to build up that relationship. But if you're not careful, we don't tend to forget that kind of emotional sting, and it can really bite us. The reason I had told you that story about sitting outside when I was asking myself, am I in or am I out? It was in no way to draw any sort of sympathy. I'm not about that. It's not part of what I do. It was just to let you know that it took me a really long time to get the confidence up in myself to share that story with people, to let them in what I struggle with. I don't know why. It seems like as we go on in life, we tend to create this barrier, this armor around us. We don't want to look weak. We don't want to let people know how we're really doing inside. Whether you bring me into your office or you take things like connection bids, hi-ya moments back, it's up to us to help the people we work with take that armor off. And once you do that, once you show them how to do it by being an example yourself, I promise you, they will thank you over and over and over for it. When I was digging myself out of that seemingly bottomless pit, there were some certain things, like some real difference makers that I used to get out, to make it to that next level. And I wrote down everything on this big list because I thought, I don't ever want anyone that I meet to have to go through this. What made the difference? And I started out with a list that took up like a whole piece of paper and kept paring it down, squeezing out the stuff that was repetitive or that didn't really matter or wasn't repeatable. And I condensed it down into just 5 things. And these are the facts of life. The facts just stands for focus, attitude, choice, thanks, and smile. See, these are the 5 variables that you can always control and that are absolutely critical for creating a can-do culture within your office. I mean, F, focus. That just is the ability to zoom that lens out, maybe when you're knee-deep in problems or stress or challenges. Go ahead and think of one problem that you're having in your life right now, something that's tough for you. Okay, with that problem in mind, now look down at your thumb and pretend your thumb is that problem. Right now, go ahead and do it. All right, this is where it gets tricky. Now, close one eye and stick your thumb or your problem not in your eye, but 1 inch from your eye, just like this. Tell me, what can you see? Is it kind of blurry? Not very clear? Can you see many options? Okay, now go ahead and stick your thumbs out. Hey, right? Tell me what changed. Now what can you see? The big picture? A lot more clear, more bright? Answer this for me, yes or no. Did your problem go away? All you did was change your perspective, what you're choosing to focus on. And really, when we're talking about attitude, the second part of the facts, there's only two types: the positive can-do attitude and the negative can't-do attitude. Thank you. So I was giving a keynote for the Oregon Association of Student Councils on Monday, and I had a hi-ya man that was like right front center. Every time throughout the entire speech, I would say can't, won't, or don't. He'd say, Jake, hi-ya! Try not to laugh, man. That negative attitude really has the power to infect other people's mind. And in a group setting, that is your worst enemy. Where a positive attitude, making that choice to have one, that has the power to affect other people. When I think about how a negative attitude takes away our options and what it was like when I let a negative attitude infect my mind, it reminded me of one of those big white floppy dog cones like a vet would put on your dog. So go ahead and put your negative attitude dog cone on, just like this. Put those hands up with your negative attitude dog cone on. If there's a problem right in front of you, what can you see? Just your problem? Can you see your neighbors right now? What if they could help you? Well, it's probably a good thing you can't see them because they look kind of ridiculous. Okay, take your negative attitude dog cone on. I would challenge you with this thought. If you're thinking, Jake, it's not me, it's all these other negative people around me, man. You know what? That might be true. But if you want something to change, where is the first place that you should always start? Right here, it's the only thing you can control. The second part of my story is something I didn't tell you. It's about choice. It's kind of sad, so that's why I saved it. After that accident happened, my old best friend, broke my neck. He just left me there. He's out. I've never seen or heard a word from the guy since. When we feel wronged like that, at a core level, how easy is it to blame those people for everything bad that happened in our lives? I mean, he put me in the full Nelson. He was drunk. She said this to me. He left me. She cheated on me. I can't believe I have this illness. How can we ever move forward if we spend our whole time looking in the rearview mirror at what happened? Happened is past tense. All you have control over is the future. There's a poem that I got in the mail from a friend of mine who's like this 80-year-old nun. I can't believe it. And as I'm reading this poem, I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, this sounds like something Hulk Hogan would say. Excuse me while I get into character. As you go through life, brother, whatever your goal, hey, you keep your eye on the donut, not on the hole. Make sense? You and I are going to face bumps along the road, but it is our choice, and only our choice, down or up, as to which way that bump propels you. Fourth part of the facts is T for thanks. One of my favorite speakers, Zig Ziglar, is this man from the South. He'd say, boy, you need to get yourself an attitude of gratitude. Okay. Back in the hospital. It's like 3:30 in the morning. I'm still very new to this injury. I wake up, and staring down at me is this guy that says, hi, my name is Jason. I'm looking up at him kind of like, why? Because up until that point, I had had some gorgeous college girl nurses, and here's Jason. Not his fault. He says, I've been talking to your dad. Sounds like you're a sports guy. Want to flip on ESPN, see what's on? I'm like, sure, why not? Turns on the TV. What do you think is on ESPN at 3:30 in the morning? What's that? I love motocross. Motocross would have been awesome. Poker would have been awesome. Curling would have been awesome. Now, Jason and I experienced the world championships of yo-yo. But something shifted during that. Instead of feeling like a patient, that attention he gave me made me feel like a friend. In fact, just like some of the friends I've been hanging out with 4 days before. And then he asked me a question that honestly none of my friends had ever asked, but he says, Jake, could I wash your hair? Again, still back in that kind of roughneck mentality. I'm like, what? Hey, just between you and me, it was awesome. Check it out, because I couldn't feel anything from here down. So just that touch, that connection made me feel like a person again. What was the difference between Jason and many of those other employees that I came into contact with? When he saw a chance to help, to reach out at that critical time, like many of you have that power to, even though it was a life-changing situation, that attention he gave me just made me feel like a friend instead of a patient. It lifted me up out of that hole so that I could gain traction and start moving forward again. Every single one of you has that power to be adjacent with someone you work with, associate with, or even live with. And you never know what it's going to be that'll lift that person up and make their day. The last part of the facts is smile. I mean, we tend to chug these sugar-charged energy drinks to get our mood up. A smile is a way cheaper and more natural way to do the same thing. The most significant study that's been done on how our facial expressions affect us found that the muscles involved in smiling are directly related to the parts of our mind that control our mood. And I'm not going to say that just a smile and a positive attitude made everything better, but it left a lot of doors open that I didn't even know about. So who can raise their hand and tell me what the facts of life stand for? Ooh. Yes, sir. Nice job. Give him a round of applause. You come see me afterwards, I'll give you a copy of the book. Hey, here's a leadership secret you can use. And I'm going to need a volunteer for it. So someone, please come up here. Thank you. Give her a round of applause. How did that make you feel when I was bossing you around like that?
Okay.
Okay.
I take direction.
200 push-ups.
Oh.
This happens all the time at work. We're busy, we're snippy. We don't treat people like teammates, like equals. And when we order people around like that, it makes you feel inferior, like you're working for somebody instead of with them. Here's all you have to do to make it different. Jenna, I'm going to ask you to write some things that the audience is going to come up with on that chart. Would you be willing to do that?
Yes.
Well, thank you. The reason I asked you to is because my hands don't have much pinch, and it's just hard for me to do it. So I appreciate your help. How was that different? How did that make you feel?
It made me feel like I was useful.
And how hard was that? It's not difficult. It's just in the words we choose. So I'm going to ask the audience, and I want you to write down their suggestions really big so the people in the back can hear. I mean, make the letters as tall as your hand.
Okay.
Why do people do what we tell them to do?
Willpower.
Willpower?
Role.
Role power.
So the boss can tell the direct.
Role power, the bossiness.
Yes.
Delegation, write that down.
I ran out of the room.
Why else do people do what we tell them to do? Fear. Why else? Respect. Yep. What's that? For a paycheck. Why else? Duty. Mm-hmm. To please. Yep.
What was that?
To please. And that'll be good. If the only reason people do what we tell them to do is because we're the one in charge, we have the fancy name tag, that is setting ourselves up for a boatload of resentment and jealousy. Why should we do, or why should people do what we tell them to do? Let's just go through that list we made. So take the black, we'll go through it one by one. Should people do what we tell them to do because we have role power? Because we're the one in charge? And cross it off. How about for delegation? See, See, that one could go either way. For now, if it's constructive delegation and not just, I don't want to do this, you do it, pawn. So we'll go ahead and circle that one. Do we have a green marker?
It fell.
It fell. We'll use the black. Oh, thank you. How about fear? Yes or no? No. And cross fear off. Okay, next page. Respect. That's perfect. That sums up why people should do what we want them to do. A paycheck. That can be yes and no. I like money. Circle it. Duty. Yes. Okay, go ahead, circle that one. I think we have one more. To please. What do you think?
I think it can be either way.
That can be either way.
Either internal, intrinsic.
So how about cross half of it out and circle half of it? I didn't have a plan for one that was half in and half out. I'm sorry. Okay, well, thank you so much. Let's give her another round of applause. And on your way back, go ahead and grab yourself a book.
Thank you.
Hey, people are going to want to work and also do their best work with someone they know, trust, and respect. The problem is, not everybody knows you yet. Here's how we can solve that roadblock. I went to a conference last summer in California where there were 6,000 people. We worked to expose defining moments, have breakthroughs with each other. And we used small groups to facilitate those transitions. It was incredible. One of the best ways to get to know each other is to learn about an event that really formed who they are. So what happened in the past that still influences how they think and act today. So here's an example of how you could share a defining moment in here, or back at your work, or with your family. You could start it out with, some people may not know. Here's how mine goes. Some people may not know that I struggle with self-confidence. I mean, on stage, I'm this hero, right, that overcame a mountain of adversity. But then when I go home, every once in a while, I see a failure. Growing up as a forester, as a tough outdoors guy, I was mentally conditioned to tell myself that anything like an inspirational speaker or feelings or emotions were unmanly and bad. These last couple years, a looming cloud of doubt has plagued me and followed me wherever I've gone. That changed last year. I was giving a presentation to a business group. A lady came up afterwards and shared with me her incredible story about how she had lost her husband and her job within the last year. We talked back and forth. I'm sharing a little bit about what I do, and then I kind of made a flip joke. Said, well, I'm just kind of a speaker. I talk for a living. What she said totally caught me off guard. She looked me right in the eye. Said, Jake, stop being self-centered. It's not about you. Ooh. And she said, I've been down in the dumps for a year. The spark that you transmitted to me today, it gave me what it's going to take to lift myself up so I can finally start going again. If you have that power inside of you, it is an absolute crime to keep it to yourself. Whoa! I will never look at myself the same again. I mean, that gave me just such affirmation and confidence in myself. That literally changed how I live every day of my life. Now that you know more about me, where I'm coming from, what motivates me, will that make it easier to relate and communicate with me? Yes or no? Yes. So now it's your turn. Will you step out on the coals with me right now, with each other? Do something that feels a little risky. Open up maybe about something you've never shared before. Will you do a defining moment? I'm going to have you stand up. I'm going to give you just 30 seconds each. And it's going to be a little scary at first. I want you to grab a partner, start out with someone you might not know, or something I don't share often is. You only have 30 seconds, then I'll say switch. And it's the other person's turn. Ready, go! Switch. Next person's turn. Okay, have a seat. Hey, how was that? Is that kind of scary at first? I saw many deer in the headlights look at first. Now that you know more about that person, where they're coming from, what motivates them, will you ever look at them the same way? Hey, will one or two people be willing to stand up and in just 20 seconds share their defining moment? Anyone who had a good one? Yes, go ahead.
I hope I can get it out. I have to stand up.
If you want to.
I had, in a 6-month period of time, my best friend died of AIDS. My husband, I got a call from a friend up in Salmon Islands who said my husband was on his way to harbor view because he had been assaulted and his eyes were removed. My mother-in-law died of cancer. My brother-in-law committed suicide. I think that was it. All in 6 months.
And how did that change you?
It was a defining moment for quite a while, but now I feel like I am a more compassionate person because of it, and I can relate to others when they express painful moments. And so I feel
That's
it
incredible.
Actually, it was a bad thing, but now I feel like it was a really good thing.
That's incredible. What's your name?
Lisa.
If we didn't know Lisa, she had lost your husband, or no, your husband lost his eyes, your best friend,
Yes, mother-in-law died.
mother-in-law died,
Brother-in-law committed suicide.
brother-in-law committed suicide, all within 6 months. Wow. Yeah, that would be a huge life-changing event. Now that we know more about her, think about that compassion that we would have. You guys, compassion like this is only a single conversation away. I go into businesses and facilitate these kind of workshops. And go anywhere from an hour to half a day to I bring in a partner and do all day. Whether it's me doing this or whether it's you facilitating these defining moments. And if anyone wants to contact me on how to do this, I'd be willing to teach you how to do it in your office. These are absolutely huge for creating that connection and can-do within our workplace. We're just going to take 1 minute and then I'll wrap it up here. Open that business card of mine that you have. And in there is set a goal, make a plan, do it. Because remember I said, intention without action doesn't get you anywhere. Write that goal down. What is one way in this next week you are going to work to try to improve connection within your office? Will you open up to someone you've never opened up to? Be aware of connection bids. Have those conversations. Reach out. How will you do it? We're done right after this. I'm going to end it with a story. Now what's your plan? What will you do? And then put a date on that baby. When is it going to happen? It takes 3 to 6 months to facilitate a change. There's a couple ways you can do that. There's contact information on that handout I'd like you to fill out. It's a review of how I did today. If you'd like to bring me back to your business, put your contact info there. I also have a book for sale. And that is a great way, if you know someone that could use a little attitude of gratitude, that's a subtle way of kind of saying, hey, you should read this and see what you think without harping on them. The last way is I have a Facebook page totally set up for my audience members, and I post things on there every day that keep that message fresh and top of mind. It's called Life Happens - Live It. My last story is really a quote from Dr. Seuss. He said, you have brains in your head and feet in your shoes. You can steer yourself any direction you choose. You are who you are, and you know who you know. But you are the one who will decide how far you're going to go. So be on the lookout for those hi-ya moments. Ready, 1, 2, 3, hi-ya! Hey, when life happens, I hope you choose to live it. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Gen Y is an inspiration. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.